Hey boys and girls, Board now back with you and welcome to my review of the smackdown of the decade. Yes indeed, the long awaited big blockbuster from HBO, from Warner Brothers. This is Kong versus Godzilla. I actually said it the wrong way round. Maybe giving away that I'm a little biased in the Kong corner, but no, it's Godzilla versus Kong, which of course was released in America. It has been released in some cinemas, and that's testament by the box office, it's had one hell of an opening weekend. The film is already up to 161 box office, I believe. So well on its way to at least getting to the £200 mark. Oh, sorry, 200 million mark. Going into spoilers, so there you have it from the start. I guess it's not a lot to talk about. Plot, obviously, it's Kong versus Godzilla. It's 5 years on from the events of the previous two movies. Obviously, they've been building to this. Adam Wingard, who has a pretty decent caliber when it comes to like genre movies, obviously has a bit of background in horror and sci-fi. He is the director for this, and it brings back some of the cast members from the previous movies, and then obviously introduces a bunch of new characters as well. So, I mean, obviously you've got quite a lot of characters in this, because you've got like representatives of who are on the side of the plot of Kong, on the side of the plot of Godzilla. And just to sum it up quickly, you have, on the one half of the plot, you have this company Apex, this cybernetics company, and you have an employee who is also a podcaster, has sort of quite a hit cult sort of podcast, which is full of conspiracy theories. And one of the conspiracy theories is to do with the company itself and its handling of the whole Godzilla situation. Things come to a head when Godzilla then starts attacking the company, and Madeline, who is of course the daughter of the character, and also the who played Vera Farmiga from the first film, who were involved in the science side of things. She teams up with the podcaster and also there's called Josh, who people will recognise from a few films, including Hunt from the Wilder People. I will say he keeps his New Zealand accent for this, which is pretty cool. But they sort of team up together to look into the conspiracy theories and try to investigate just what's been going on with Godzilla. One criticism I do have, just since I mentioned Apex, is boy do they mention the name of the company a lot in the film. I know it's a big part of the plot, but come on, I think they'd mentioned the word Apex about 4 times already in the first 10-12 minutes. That is insane. There's many more mentions as well. One note on Billy Bobby Brown in this. Now, they brought her back and that was welcome, but she sort of smacks as a younger Winona Ryder in this. I got that vibe from her, which is kind of ironic because, they're together in Stranger Things. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, I did get those vibes from her in this. The other side of the plot, we have a group who are investigating Kong and working with him for study purposes, but also trying to like control him, sort of thing. So you have this girl Jira, who's the one remaining survivor from the island. She's deaf, but she can communicate with Kong through sign language. And so there's mother, who's played by Rebecca Hall, who's yeah, a doctor and very much interested in nature and in these sorts of species. And they sort of work together with a character played by Alexandra Skarsgård, Dr. Nathan Lind, and there's a group that joins in at one point who potentially seem to have like ulterior motive. But obviously things come to a head with the big battles. We get further into the plot and what's actually happening. Obviously, there's quite a big eco message in it. Quite a big, humans are the problems again. Maybe technology is the problem. At one point, there's a point where Godzilla is being controlled through like a headset, through like this guy's mind is controlling Godzilla. So it goes quite deep into the sci-fi like side of things and mythology. I would say I'm a bit meh on the film. I think meh is a good word to use because overall I did find it very messy, very all over the place, kind of bland mostly. Obviously, that there is like a novelty appeal and a sort of an iconic factor to the fact we have Kong and Godzilla in one movie, and there's certainly fun to have on that side of things. But I think overall, because I think even some of those scenes are a little bit sloppy, and humans are the problem, and technology, blah blah blah, military, that kind of thing. They just hammer home that message too much, and it's over predictable in some of its themes and some of the ideas. Obviously, it does go to places which I didn't expect. Some of the sci-fi stuff, I've got to admit, what was quite different for this sort of film, and obviously this idea of this girl who is the best at communicating through Kong, but she does it through sign language, meeting with other cultures, with people from other cultures, or this sort of metaphor anyway, where I think it's getting at this idea of being open minded and embracing other cultures, and almost you have to go out of your way and sometimes do things outside of the box. Problem with that stuff is that the film is so rushed, almost because there's so much going on. It's almost like it's sort of segmented where you have to have human stuff, but then you have to bounce around between obviously the conflict with the monsters, and I think it does rush through an awful lot of plot, and the characters suffer because of that. I did mostly enjoy the action, and obviously there's some good effects, and there's a lot of fun to be had with the actual Kong versus Godzilla scenes. But also I did feel at times they suffered from being generic. Wingard does his best. He's decent at that sort of thing, but at times those scenes were a bit too busy and did suffer from being a bit too typically big dumb blockbuster type scenes. And sometimes the effects were strong, other times not so much. I thought action stuff. I think overall it with those scenes it lacked a good B-movie type feel. I mean, there's towards the end, like the last big battle between them, when things come to a head. There was some fun stuff in that with buildings kind of toppling over and stuff. All that I think it could have done with a bit more B-movie charm in those sorts of scenes. It basically makes no sense. There are so many plot holes. And I guess you might sort of argue it's so silly than it's actually entertaining. I'm not quite sure I would go that far, but I can understand why people might think that. But I think it is just so silly, so preposterous, and I'd say they could have done more with. They could have done more with the drama. Last Godzilla film, King of the Monsters, because I'm actually in the minority in that and disagreeing with most people, because most people were really down on the human characters in that. They thought they were bland, forgettable, not very interesting, and whereas they really enjoyed the monster stuff. That's pretty much what a lot of people are saying about this movie as well. But actually, with King of the Monsters, I was the opposite. I actually liked the human stuff, and I actually got into that stuff more than the monster stuff. Now, I'm flipped around on this. I'm definitely with the people who don't like that, because they are just wasted. Millie Bobby Brown character, she's a good character. I mean, I thought she was a good character in the first film, but yeah, it's almost like they're rushing through the plot so quickly in this, and there's just not enough meaty stuff for her to do. The podcast guy was disappointing as well. I know that actor's been in a few films, and he was given, or just the way he was written, podcast, and maybe because he's not like a hierarchy sort of figure, you could say he's an outsider. So I think they were going for that sort of vibe, that sort of an outcast or an outsider sort of knows this stuff actually the best because he isn't so far into like the minutiae of it. I mean, there's some nice comedy with like the Millie Bobby Brown, Madeline, and her friend Josh. There's some nice stuff with them, but you don't get enough of it. I mean, really, with more focus, there could have been a proper relationship developed between them. Podcast guy, I just thought was pretty bland. He was nowhere near as entertaining or like engrossing as I was hoping for, because he has quite a strong introduction, but just a bit of a nothing character really. And I'm sort of guessing it's more down to the writing than the actor, but I said there's a lot of plot holes. There's definitely a lot of like science plot holes, and I think there's just too many to really forgive it. But one basic plot hole I thought is employee of the company who has a podcast, a conspiracy theory podcast. Obviously that you're sort of assuming they don't know about the podcast. But then again, if it'd been going for a while, you just would have thought nowadays with the technology, with social media, that somewhere along the line, this company would have found out about this employee having this podcast. And given the sort of company they are, and given the fact that the CEOs running it and stuff are into like dodgy dealings and stuff, you wouldn't have thought they would have been best pleased about someone who works for them doing a conspiracy theory podcast. Again, a similar thing on the other side of the plot. I thought there was wasted potential with the Dr. Eileen character and pieces from the cast, and sort of talking up their roles and saying why they're interesting and progressive. She felt like a Jane Goodall sort of character. You've had Alexandra Skarsgård kind of saying he was inspired by like the Indiana Jones type movies, and you think, okay, yeah, that sounds good on paper, but the problem is it doesn't work out like that in reality. It doesn't work out like that in the film because it's not giving them enough time to breathe. Alexander Skarsgård is miscast in that role. I found him a bit annoying, and that he didn't really engage me in the role. I sort of half expected him at times to turn out to be like a douche and a villain, because those are the kinds of roles you think he's more suited for. So that was distracting. Rebecca Hall I like a lot, but again, I don't think she's given enough to do. Some nice stuff with Kong and the girl, but of the film is that the word for coward type thing that they use throughout the film, and she sort of uses it for like the Skarsgård character at one point, because at the start he's very reluctant to sort of go along with their plan and to try something different. But then later on they kind of have, but the joke is that he actually thinks that the word is like more positive than it is, sort of thing. So they're having like a moment, and she's basically pulling a prank on him. So that's a good joke. I did enjoy. The humour could have been better in this. I think this is the sort of movie where kind of having sharp one-liners and stuff can really help the flow of it and make it sort of more enjoyable. You didn't really have that, bar a couple, 2 or 3 maybe good jokes. I thought there's some pretty lame one-liners. I mean, one of the better ones might be, like Rebecca Hall's, her character saying "Con bows to no one," but overall I thought the one-liners were pretty lame. The film's biggest crime might have been Lance Reddick getting like 8 seconds of screen time or something. I mean, it might have been a bit more, but it only felt like 8 seconds. He's the CEO of Apex, and he has 2 very brief scenes, and you're like, what the fuck? I mean, just totally wasted. You can't believe it. Now, I think Wingard has said that originally he had a bigger role, but that they just cut some of his stuff because the scenes didn't seem relevant, which obviously fair enough, but still you just think you have an actor like that and potentially a good character. I think good for him. Obviously it's disappointing. I'm a film for wasting Lance Reddick, but in the end it peters out a bit. The ending was quite well done, but it also has a sudden ending. Some of the themes, some of the messaging is a bit over the top, or just a bit predictable. Maybe is a better way to say it. Another thing I wasn't so keen on is that at times the sort of high-tech, flashy sort of look a bit too clean. I think it was almost too much like a computer game, and just took me out of the film. But yeah, sometimes that was a bit distracting. So overall, it's a bit of a murder film for me. It was a bit underwhelming, and I know a lot of people disagree, but I actually preferred King of the Monsters to this, and I might get some hate for that, but I did. Sorry, I preferred this to Kong Skull Island. I would say that was more kind of forgettable than this, but overall, not great. I'm glad I watched it. There's certainly a novelty factor, and there was some fun, but not enough for me, and I wanted more from the human characters. So 5.5 out of 10 is where I'm going to go for this for a rating. I will say I will watch this again, and pretty mediocre overall, at least on this viewing, but there you have it. Let me know your thoughts of Kong versus, I said it again, Godzilla versus Kong in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and look out for more film reviews from me. Also more TV reviews, including Line of Duty, the new series 6, which I've been reviewing 2 episodes in, and there will be a 3rd review of the 3rd episode coming over the next couple of days. But thanks for listening, guys. Happy Easter weekend. Goodbye.